Welcome back. And this is a special one. This is episode number 20 of Food for Thought Live. So thank you very much for joining us. I know some of you have joined us for all 20 episodes, and I'm just overwhelmed by that. I think it's incredible that we've got to that point already, and the fact that you guys have been so supportive of this, and all of my guests and everyone up to this point. It's just amazing. Thank you so much for making this what it is. I'm thrilled to be back, and I genuinely can't believe that, it was May 11th was our first episode. May 11th. And what are we now? July 2nd? July 1st, July 2nd. What's the date? I don't know. Anyway, it's July. And it's not even 2 months. And here we are 20 episodes in. It's been wonderful. Thank you. Good night. No, that's not it. We're gonna do some more tonight. But before we do, I just want to say this has been a wonderful week where if you've been following social media, you'll know that we now have 2 squirrels in residence. They're not here neither of them are here at the moment, but we now have Kiki and Dee. That's official, and I can very proudly tell you that Kiki D literally gave her nod of approval on this, and so that was through Twitter, where she very graciously said that she thinks that Kiki's a very sweet gal and gave the thumbs up, and also Born Free very kindly contacted Kiki D. And I mean this, I'm absolutely serious, on very important squirrel-related business, and she gave the nod of approval. It's for Kiki's new friend to be D. So it's Kiki D, officially. So thank you very much to Kiki D for that. I never thought I'd be saying that sentence. Thank you to my 19 wonderful guests prior to this, including the most recent guest, Liz Tyson from the Born Free USA Primate Sanctuary. That was an amazing conversation. She's an amazing person, and what incredible work they do there. And speaking of incredible work, it's really, really difficult to summarize without sounding gushy what my guest this evening has achieved. But of course, that's what we're going to talk about. But it's such a pleasure and an honor, because this is a great dear friend of mine, as well as being an incredible, effective, powerful conservationist. My friend, Margot Raggett.
Hi.
Right.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. Good to see you.
Look at that. We got Margot on. I've been looking forward to this. We spoke about this before it started, didn't we?
Yeah, you said, I'm thinking of doing this thing, and I said, sounds brilliant, go for it. So I'm really happy to be here. Thank you.
Oh, we're so happy to have you here. And you guys who will have, a lot of you seen the promo poster that I shared, will know what Margot's responsible for. And we're going to talk a lot about this tonight, and we're going to talk about a lot of different species because of it. And what we're talking about so far are these 4 incredible books, which I'm very proud to have copies of. And they're just staggering books. A lot of you will know them. If you don't, you're in for a treat, because we're going to point you towards where you can get them. And Margot's going to tell the whole story about how this has come to be. So with that in mind, Margot, where should we start? I mean, God, where should we start? Right at the beginning?
Yeah, I think so. I think we need to take it right back to the beginning with elephants. And yeah, I mean, the story is, and forgive me, some people might know this, but I was spending a lot of time trying to build a career as a wildlife photographer out in Kenya. And in 2014, I was up in northern Kenya in Laikipia, a wonderful place called the Laikipia Wilderness Camp. And I'd been having a great safari. This was the end of a trip to Kenya, all about photography at that stage. And we got woken up in the middle of the night by hyenas, the noise of hyenas going absolutely crazy close to camp. I think it was like 4:30 in the morning, just a lot of hyenas, and very unusual. So we knew something had happened. So at first light, like 5:30, we were out in the vehicle, went to the area. You can get out on foot in that particular place. So kind of tracked behind the guide to see what was happening. And we turned a corner, and and saw a very shocking sight. I know that you've got a picture which, I'll let you flash it up in a bit, but basically what we saw was an elephant who'd been poached, and he was probably about 14 years old. He had relatively tiny tusks because he's just a little teenager. He's of that age that as an elephant he would have been kicked out of the herd. So male elephants are kind of pushed out over time because elephant herds are matriarchal. So as they get older, males go off and they're either solitary or they join up with a few other males as a group. But this young teenager was no doubt alone, and someone had shot him with a poisoned arrow. It was just, I was saying how could this happen and why has it happened? He's still got his tusks, it wasn't poachers. And they said, no doubt he escaped the poachers. So they shot him, he would have run off and kept running, so got away from them. But then the poison would have taken, 3 or 4 days to kill him. And the sight of that, the knowledge of that, everything about that experience was horrific and overwhelming and just hit me in a way I think I'd never really been hit before. And I just didn't know how to process that emotion. And then I just thought, I'm not having this. I am not having it. And I thought, you can post a really angry post on Facebook, but that's not enough. I actually have to practically do something about this because I'm not having this.
What
can I do?
And what you've done is absolutely staggering, but I don't want to do you a disservice. I am going to share this photograph, but you guys watching know I don't share graphic images. I certainly don't do it gratuitously, but I think this is important. And the reason why I'm saying this for 2 reasons. One, because as you can hear from what Margot's telling you, that's the whole reason we're here having this conversation, is because this is what sparked it off and inspired Margot to make this incredible campaign real. But I'm also telling you because I'm going to give you a chance to avert your eyes should you wish to, because I don't want to destroy any of you guys. This is upsetting, of course, but I think it's important. Well, it is important. Look at what Margot has achieved, and by the end of this conversation, you'll know just what Margot has achieved so far because of this. So it doesn't matter whether you're watching this live or whether you're watching the recording subsequent to the live event. I'm going to give you 3 seconds to avert your eyes if you don't want to see a poached elephant. This is what Margot's talking about. And why is that not behaving itself? Sorry, guys. Doesn't want to be shown.
No.
Literally, I'm clicking on the slide right there. It just doesn't want to be shown. That's all right. That's not. It's like a sign from the universe. It doesn't want to be shown. I've no idea why that's happening. Let me see if it's hidden or something. Isn't that strange?
Yeah.
Hold on.
Well, don't worry, Dan. I mean, I think that people could even see in the thumbnail, and people can imagine what it is.
Yeah, but I think it is important. I think it is important. I've got no idea why that slide isn't showing. It's quite bizarre. You can see the slide before it and the slide after it's showing, but that slide's not.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure why, but I can't see any unhide slide option. Maybe it's just a sign that we're not supposed to show it.
Yeah, I think so. But I think, whether you can see it or not, I think that the point is that actually this whole series is in his memory, and there's a philosophy I've got from it. I just thought if I can do anything, he was personal for me, and I know you feel exactly the same about this as I do, Dan, but these animals are sentient beings with their own lives and their own personality, and we've got no right to remove that life or take it away. And for him, I just thought, if I can stop one other elephant from having the same fate as he did, from going through the same pain as he did, the horror, as an apology to him on behalf of all the horrible humans that have poached so many elephants, then I'll have achieved something. And I stand to that philosophy. I think that conservation is such a mammoth task, and it can be overwhelming sometimes, that you think, that you get bombarded with bad news all the time, and you think, God, are we achieving anything? All these, decades and decades of conservation work, are we achieving anything? I thought, no, if I can prevent one death like that, then we have achieved something. And, so that's why I'm doing it. And we had a very good example of that when we'll come on to it. But, you and I then went out to Kenya after Remembering Elephants came out, and we had a perfect example of how we'd actually averted a poaching incident because of sales of Remembering Elephants. So,
absolutely.
I think for everyone who gets overwhelmed by conservation sometimes and what we achieve, remember my elephant, and we're doing it for him.
I think one of the things that I have to say, Margot, about you as an individual is that you have this incredible ability to, I guess this comes down to your PR corporate background. You've got a very logical mind, and alongside your compassion and sensitivity, you're able to apply that to such great effect. Because what you've done, and I'd love for you to talk about this, the concept of the books. What you've done is you've simplified for people a way in which they can contribute, and it's so simple, it's genius, and it's so unique, and it certainly was unique at the time that you created it. And I want to jump right to a question that Darren Coombs, one of our wonderful supporters, has asked: can I still buy the books? Yes, you can. I'm going to share with you the website where you can buy the books. In fact, I can see Ashley James very kindly has shared it already at rememberingwildlife.com. All of the books are still available. And Margot, please tell us a little bit just about the concept, the idea behind how this works right from the start in terms of pulling it together, raising the funds, and then selling the books.
Yeah, so these beautiful books are, none of these photographs are my photographs, I should emphasize. They are only possible because I managed to persuade a lot of the biggest names in wildlife photography in the world to collaborate together, and to all donate an image each to, initially, as I just thought it was going to be a one-off book, Remembering Elephants. So I started that first year thinking I just want 50 photographers, because that sounded like a nice round number, and I didn't actually know 50 at the time. I knew about 20, but started just researching the best images I could find out there, because what I wanted to do is put a book together that was a tribute and the most beautiful book ever seen on elephants. And so therefore I could pick and choose what I thought were the most beautiful pictures out there of elephants in one collection. And that had never been done before. Lots of photographers had done their own books, and there are things like Wildlife Photographer of the Year, which are compilations, but a very species specific book with all of the best work in one place that had never really been done before. And I should just explain the title as well, Remembering Elephants. Around the time that the book started to kind of formulate in my mind, I saw an interview with Jane Goodall, Dr. Jane Goodall, very famous conservationist, and she was talking about the rate of poaching of elephants. That there are around 400,000 elephants left, and they were being poached at around 30 to 40,000 elephants a year. So at that rate, if you extrapolate it, within 10 to 15 years, there might not be any wild elephants left. And when I saw her say that, I can remember it was on BBC Breakfast. I kind of sat down in shock at that thought that in our lifetime, there might not be wild elephants left. And it was done on our watch. So I thought, okay, I obviously, I don't want that to happen. That's what I'm fighting to prevent with the publication of this book. But, let's imagine a world where it has happened. And this is the tribute to what they had been like, 20 years ago. And that was such an emotional thought to me. It could bring me to tears. And I thought, that I need to provoke people into thinking, that this is a reality that could happen. So some people get a bit funny with me and say, oh, you shouldn't call it that, they're still around. But I'm being deliberately provocative. This is what we might only be remembering these animals in picture books if we don't get our act together.
I mean, it's a hard reality to comprehend even the prospect of. But as you say, you need to be provocative with it. We need to inspire people to take action, and of course, as I've alluded to, you've done that in a way that's, I think, incredibly clever. All the way from the creation, the inception of the idea, how it works, as you've just talked about, gathering donated photographs from some of the best photographers in the world for the ultimate collection of this specific species at the time. And of course, to begin with, it was elephants. But then, of course, the whole means by which you enable people to contribute to the creation of the book, the actual physical production of the book, therefore enables you to sell it, meaning all profits go to the cause, because the book's paid for. You're not paying off a publishing house or whatever it is. And just walk us through that part of it as well.
Yeah, so we use a crowdfunding platform called Kickstarter, and the idea is that if we've just finished the Kickstarter for this year, so there isn't a Kickstarter live right now, but when we're running them, we ask people to buy in advance the book. So we say this book will be on sale in October for £45, but buy it now on Kickstarter for £40, and effectively give us the cash flow to make the book. And not only that, but people can buy sets of 3, they can buy limited edition books. And in that first year, I think I had 1 or 2 other items that were also donated that I could sell on Kickstarter. But over time, it's really grown. So we've had some wonderful safari operators donating safaris for us to sell, some amazing artists who've become very good personal friends of mine as well, like Karen Lawrence Rowe and Gary Hodges, donating work for us to sell on the Kickstarter. And really it's, you know, a feast of goodies if you love wildlife that people can support us with, buy the books in advance, and that then pays for us to make the book. So then when we actually get the books printed and delivered and published in October each year, they've all been paid for. They're all bought outright. So we give the books that were bought before, and then I've got a stock of books that I want to sell to as many people as I possibly can. And then all of the profits, as you say, from the books that we've got can then go in the pot and help us to raise money. So the commitment has always been all of the profits from this entire series goes to conservation. And I'd say in that first year with elephants, I set myself a target of raising £100,000, which seemed like a staggering amount to me. I kind of thought that sounds great. Wouldn't that be amazing? But didn't really expect that we would achieve it. But yeah, that's how it works.
Shall we? I mean, I'm just going to go grab a copy of one of the books to show people. But and this isn't a loaded question. We can tell people this later, or you can talk about the total, because obviously you guys have seen that it started with elephants, as Margot's describing how that started. But we've since then seen rhinos, great apes, lions, and this year the current book is cheetahs. Do you want to tell the guys this? So keeping in mind that 100,000 that seems so huge, that mammoth target that you had back in the day, please, while I go get this book, if you'd like to tell people where you are at now. Incredibly. So we have, I think as of last month, we've now donated £628,550. We've supported 40 different projects in, I think it's 33 different countries. I can hardly believe it, really. But as you say, I just luckily struck on something that really works and that people love. People want to buy these books, gift them to people, own these books, and when they're doing that, not only are they getting something beautiful, but they're actually helping us to give funds to projects that desperately now more than ever need that money. Yeah, I mean, I adore you for many reasons, one of which is your humility, because I know, and I hope you won't mind me saying this, but because we've become very close friends over the few years that we've known each other, I have the benefit of anyway, seeing your fears, your doubts. You and I have sat many times over a cup of coffee talking about your fears of, like, is this going to work? Are people going to go for this? and maybe that's the species you've chosen, or maybe that's just because it's the second or third or fourth. Will people still be interested? I've got to hold you up on one of the things that you just said there, where you got really lucky that you stumbled upon a successful formula. You didn't get lucky. You created something incredible, which by the way, I've seen mimicked a number of times since, which I think speaks volumes, because you know, and I'm not saying that that's a bad thing, by the way. I'm just saying that, you know, when that starts to happen, people realize that it's an incredibly good, effective, powerful, brilliant idea. And you've seen that happen a lot since your first book. But nothing has stemmed the flow of supporters towards the Remembering Wildlife series. It's just been incredible, and the growth and the number you just said, 620 some thousand pounds, did you say?
628,550.
I'm sick of these approximations. How many pence? It's an incredible achievement, because you're right with what you said back in the day. £100,000 is an enormous amount of money. If I was to set out today to achieve £100,000 fundraising for anything, I'd be like, wow, how am I going to do this? And not only have you done that, but it's nearly 7 times that now, and we're not even close to finished. And that's an incredible achievement. And it's nothing to do with luck. It's all to do with you and what you've done, and the passion and drive behind what you've done. I know firsthand. So I'm not guessing. I've seen you go through the thick and thin of all this, and it's absolutely incredible. So this isn't a goodbye, by the way. We're only 20 minutes into this, but I want to just say a huge thank you for what you've created, because it's staggering. And most importantly, it's achieved what you set out to achieve, which is that it helps the species. Every single book that you sell, whether it's elephants, rhinos, great apes, lions, here it is. And I wanted to show you this for a reason, guys, so you get a sense of the scale. I have a normal human head here. That's how, this is one of those books that everyone's buying at Christmas. Everybody's buying as a gift for somebody else, or for themselves, just for pleasure. The photographs are literally world-class photographs. You can't, I'm just opening the page randomly. There's not a single page where you're going to see a photograph that doesn't just melt you, blow your mind. It's staggering. All of these books are incredible. There's no person that doesn't need one of these and would benefit from having one. And when I say benefit, I mean it literally, because this is what Margot's created, is the ability for you to get something as beautiful as that, a collector's edition. You could get this whole collector's set, and every penny of it. And I've had the privilege, which we'll get into talking about in a moment, I had the privilege of going with Margot to Africa, specifically because Margot absolutely insists on transparency. So you get to see where your money's been spent and how it has directly impacted conservation positively. That, Margot Raggett, is what you've done.
Bless you, thank you. And I also should thank you for being my counsellor many times over the years, because you're right. I mean, maybe it's a good thing. I genuinely feel concern and insecurity about, you know, have I bored everyone by making too many books? You know, will people still want to be there this year? And maybe that keeps, you know, I mean, it's better than being arrogant and complacent, I'm sure. Yeah. But yeah, it does rack me sometimes with worry. So you've been a wonderful sounding board to tell me not to be so stupid over the years, which I really appreciate.
Oh, well, it's been an honour, and it's been a pleasure. And I actually agree with you wholeheartedly. I think it's really it's a really admirable quality, and I think it's something that has actually lent itself very, very well to the ongoing success of the campaign and the series, because there's not been a moment where you've thought, oh yeah, this is going to be a walk in the park. I know that for a fact, because I've been with you where you've been fretting on the eve of the Kickstarter launch, or you've been fretting on the eve of the RGS event, and all these incredible things that you've done, and all of which have been a storming success. But at no point have you ever gone into it thinking, yeah, of course it's going to be a success. I have. I get to sit back and just go, well, I know it's going to work, but you don't, because you've got this beautiful humility about you, and you're so invested in this because you know how much it matters, not just to you, but to the conservation groups that you support, and to the animals, most importantly, because every single penny of it is literally saving lives, and we've seen that. And so that's my gush over. There'll probably be more. I am going to gush a little bit more. little later, but I'll give you I'll give you a breather for a couple of minutes. So it was elephants first.
Yeah.
And I met you right after you created the Remembering Elephants books, and we connected on social media. Thank you, social media. And I've been a very, very proud ambassador for you since. And I couldn't be prouder. I think it's an incredible endeavor that you have created and that I'm a part of. And then because of the fact that we connected and obviously had this shared passion, you made the big mistake of saying, hey, we should go to Africa. And I think before you'd finished the of Africa, I'd booked my flight.
This is true. It was quite a spontaneous thing, wasn't it? With lucky it worked out, because I think we'd known each other for about a week when we decided that we'd go and see how some of the money was being spent, just to make sure it was being spent correctly. And what a happy start to a friendship that was. So yeah,
what a happy start. And we ended up seeing some incredible things. These slides are what's going on?
I've sent you a duff presentation, haven't I?
Yeah, what's going on, Margot?
That's that Back to Kenya distributing funds is a.
Let's try this.
Note that I have behind it. Click on the next one. See if that works.
Oh no!
Oh no!
This can't happen. Who knows how to use Keynote? Tell us. Hold on. Let's see what happens if I do this.
Yeah, and then use the forward arrow. And
I don't. No. Some of it's going to work. Did you see that?
Yeah. That worked.
Let's see. Can I pause it, or does it just go when I tell it to? Does that? What am I getting this for? Well, look, remembering we have. I'll tell you what. I know I've got the photograph that comes next in the deck.
Right.
So I'll find it while you whistle the British Airways theme tune or something.
If only I could whistle like some.
That's an in-joke.
Yeah, the picture you were going to show is basically, I think actually you took it, and it's of me, and we're in Meru in northern Kenya, which is so for the first 3 books I partnered with the Born Free Foundation. So at that stage I was just starting out and not sure how best to spend funds, very aware that there's a high chance of money going to the wrong causes in Africa or going missing in Africa. So I wanted to kind of work with a partner I could trust, and Born Free were great for that. And so, we went to Meru, where they have a sort of headquarters up in Kenya. And there we had paid, our funds have been used to put tyres on 10 anti-poaching vehicles. We also paid to have fuel for 6 months for those vehicles. And we also paid to fix what's called a grading machine, which basically the roads get very churned up with the mud in the rainy season out in Africa. And if you leave car kind of grooves from the tyres, they become impassable when those solidify, almost like hard as concrete. So a grading machine can kind of smooth off the top of the road and make it passable for rangers to get to parts of the Meru Park that they actually couldn't get to before the grader was fixed. So as an aside, we had the fun job of actually getting to drive the grader. I'll tell everyone I was better at it than Dan. He'll probably deny that, but I was an excellent grading driver. You've gone quiet now, Dan. I can't hear you.
I muted myself because there was a police car going by.
Okay, you're back.
Which happens a lot around here. This area is going down the pan.
But anyway, the apart from teasing you about our competitiveness for driving the grader, the thing that happened when we were in Meru that really brought everything home to me and kind of cemented that we did have something that really worked here was, I know you'll remember this, we woke up one morning to go for our safari drive, and when we were all meeting for breakfast, there was a lot of hushed talk and people going around the lodge discussing things, and we were saying, what's going on, and they said, well, actually there were poachers in the park last night, and gunshots were heard. But our rangers, because of the tyres we put on their vehicles, because of the fuel they had, because the roads were passable again, had been in the area, had exchanged fire by shooting in the air, And actually, the poachers obviously heard that and disappeared. So in the morning, they were still searching that when we were all having our coffee and wondering what was going on to see if they could find any evidence of a poached animal. And thank God they didn't. They found cartridges from guns. So they tried to poach, but it had been averted because of the money that we'd been able to put into that anti-poaching effort. So my dream of saving one elephant and at that point I've been working for about 18 months on this book. And we just sent the money out, was proven that it actually worked, which was an amazing feeling. I'm sure you remember it.
I remember it very well. And it was what struck me, aside from the almost surreal nature of the fact that there we were because I remember we were out on a game drive that evening, right the way through past sunset into the blue hour, which is what they call it when the sun has gone. And there's a half hour, 45-minute or hour period of that incredible blue light after the sun has set before it's too dark. And it was that time that it was supposedly happening, which we subsequently found out the next morning. But we literally were out in the park while a poaching attempt was being made. And that hit me like a ton of bricks. But also what hit me was the fact that, and I think this is something you had said preemptively, you'd said all along, there's nothing glamorous about tires and fuel for vehicles. It's not putting a big feeding bottle into a baby elephant's mouth, which is where people are like, oh my God, and they donate. It's not the obvious stuff, but that was the difference between an animal living or dying. You providing the tires, you providing the grading machine. I remember, I'll never forget that grading machine. It was like something, it was like out of the Transformers movie. And I couldn't believe that we got to drive it. And it literally, as you described, it flattens the road so that it's passable by vehicle. But then of course, if the vehicles don't have tires or fuel, it doesn't matter how flat the road is, they're still not going to get to the poachers. And so for all of those little pieces of the puzzle coming together, which is not obvious to anybody, it's not, and you were very selective about where you put the money. I know you were very hands-on about where the money went and why. And that's incredibly insightful. Again, that's another huge endorsement for what you've done and how you've done it, because, and this is for you guys watching, you don't just get a really beautiful book with beautiful photographs in it. You know that you're saving lives. You know that the money's being well spent, and you know that every penny of it is going to that very worthy endeavor. So I think that was a surreal example, a surreal experience, and a brilliant example of that situation where the money had absolutely proven itself to be brilliantly spent.
Thank you. I think the only thing I'd correct in what you just said is you said that, you, Margot, gave that money and made the difference. This is such a team effort. That there would be no book without all of the photographers who donate their work. They earn a living from their photography, but they give their work for free. Everyone who helped on the editorial side of the book. So in that first year, Keith Wilson was our editor. I was working with Born Free, so the team at Born Free who helped and helped us get publicity and kind of promote. And then also we started something that year that's just, again, amazed me and grown since then. But I had a few volunteers. I can remember we were supposed to be setting the exhibition up, and I kind of arrived at the gallery and the pictures were being dropped off, and I suddenly thought, it's quite a lot of work to hang an entire exhibition by myself. And I just put something on Facebook and said, I don't suppose anyone's around and got a few hours, have they? Because I could really do with some help here. And all these people started saying, yeah, I'll help. And they all kind of turned up like something out of a movie and rolled their sleeves up and started hanging, and later on kind of taking down. And our volunteers set has grown and grown over the years, and it's like a family now. It's wonderful. We meet up socially now. We meet up on Zoom because we can't meet face to face. But there's all these unexpected consequences, beautiful things that have kind of, and friendships that have been born out of this series. Thanks to that elephant, my elephant, which is lovely.
You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take the unprecedented step of sharing your website, because while you've been talking, I've found this, and one of the photographs that was coming next in the slide deck is coming right up, and these are some of the. I wouldn't expect you to talk through these, but this is a moment right there. That's Margot and I with Sudan, And the reason I wanted to share that photograph with you is because, for the simple reason that that's really what led to book 2, isn't it?
Yeah, it is indeed. So yeah, we finished in Meru, and the next step was to head over to Olpejita and see some wonderful friends of mine, the safari cottages there, go and stay with them. And we they're the last northern whites that some people will know about are housed. So with white rhinos, there are around 20,000 left of white rhinos. They're the most populous of all the different rhino species, but there are 2 sub species of white rhinos. So southern white, which is the one that you see whenever you go on safari, and then northern white. And at that point, there were only 3 left on the planet, and one of them was the male called Sudan, who we got to meet there. And as most people, I'm sure, watching this will probably be aware, Sudan sadly did pass actually only a few months after we'd actually met him. He was the last of his line. Now, Olpejita, they're trying to create a surrogate, a very complicated IVF process that's never been done before. Maybe they'll be successful or not, but that's not proven yet. And us sitting with him, he was a very old man at that point, very tired, which is why we were able to sit and spend that time with him. That feeling that kind of came over me, the emotion that came over me, looking in his eye and knowing he's the last of a species that has been eradicated because of human behavior again, just got me like the elephant had before. And I was just like, I can't believe that humans do this. We're wiping out everything. I was so angry and upset about it. And at that point, I hadn't decided there was going to be a book number 2. I'd just given up 18 months of my life, and put everything else on hold, thinking I'll just make this book on elephants and I've done my job. And after we launched, everyone started saying, well, there's got to be another one, hasn't there? The question I get asked more than any other nowadays is, what's the next book in the series? But at the time, I was like, what series? So there isn't one. And, But sitting with Sudan, I remember that night at dinner, I just said to you, it's got to be rhinos, hasn't it? And you said, yes.
I think I suggested squirrels, but that didn't come to be yet. But we'll see. But, that then led to, and this slide is working, which is lovely. I'm so glad you can see it. And it was absolutely that moment. I mean, I was asked just recently to describe my most meaningful or profound wildlife or conservation experience, and it was meeting Sudan. And you'll remember, I was there obviously in fact, both of us were due to talk to camera for your next book in the series, or we were talking about the follow-up for remembering elephants at that point. And it didn't matter whether it was me holding the camera to film you or me trying to talk to camera. I was unable to for about the first 20 minutes because I was just sobbing like a child, because as you'd said, you're literally facing extinction. You're watching it happen right in front of you, because you know that this is the last male of a species. And there's only 2 others who are, I think you said, are both there also, his daughter and granddaughter at Olpejita. And when you see Sudan, and I had no idea we were going to be as close as we were. When you see Sudan, I mean, that just took my breath away, because everything that we care about, I'm talking collectively, Margot, myself, all of you guys watching, because we're here and we care. It's everything we fight against, and it's there in front of you happening. You're literally looking at the last male of a species. And when he was, as you say, he was an old boy by then. He was 43, which for a rhino, by the way, they generally live to about 7 years in the wild because of poaching, on average 7 years. So he lived a very long life because of the fact that he was so heavily guarded. But I can't remember a more profound experience in life generally, to be honest, other than than meeting Sudan. I think it was just an extraordinarily sad and profound experience at the same time. And it led to this being the next book.
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember as well that both of us actually sitting with him said to him, "I'm sorry." We actually said to Sudan, "I'm sorry." And I feel like crying again, just remembering that moment. But that's how we actually ended the book, Remembering Rhinos. We actually said, Sudan, I'm sorry. And it's interesting, the books, if you actually, I spend such a lot of time writing the pieces that go in the books. And I'm sure most people just look at the pictures, which is absolutely fine. But if you actually take the time to read what's in the books as well, you kind of follow my journey. You get to kind of understand the emotions I've had and what I'm feeling about things as we go through. And definitely that book, we're saying sorry to Sudan on behalf of humans.
You're absolutely right. That was the overwhelming feeling. I remember being so ashamed of what we had done to his species and just feeling this absolute overwhelming need to apologize, to try and transmit to him that we loved him and that we were sorry for what we, the human species, had done to him and his kind. But as with very aptly, if not tragically, as with Cecil the lion, who I believe it's 5 years to this day that he was taken, murdered, basically. These iconic individual animals, I mean, not just iconic species, but an iconic individual like Sudan, like Cecil, can drive the kind of change that an example of which is Margot and the Remembering Rhinos campaign, which came next and was equally incredible. And then, of course, we went to follow up on that. So everything I've said about the money being well spent on the Remembering Elephants campaign, the same thing was very much the case with Rhinos. And of course, by this point, you're still selling, while you're selling Remembering Rhinos, you're still having people who then find out about the Rhino book are saying, well, hang on a second, what's this elephant book? I want that too. And it's just explain how it works with the well, I don't know if there's a better word for them, back copies, the older version, the previous books in the series, to explain how that works with the money that comes in from those.
Yeah, so I'm trying to just use my best judgment every year, balanced with how much money we've raised on Kickstarter, to choose how many copies we should print. And so Elephants, that first year, we printed 2,500 copies, and they sold out in 2 months flat. So we were sold out by the beginning of December and didn't have any left for Christmas, which is obviously a happy position, but also, to a control freak like me, a bit annoying because I should have printed more. But when we went and did the printing of Rhinos, we reprinted a second edition of Elephants. That also sold out. We're now on the third edition of Elephants, but I'm constantly keeping an eye on stock to try and make sure we've also always got some stock available, which we do right now. I think back issues, we've got about 800 each of the others left. But so when people buy them, we try and divert the money from those books back to those projects. So if you buy elephant books, we're keeping track of how many elephant books we've sold and therefore what the profit total is. And when we tally up enough on that book, we make subsequent donations. So even though, for example, largely, we've been making lion donations recently because that's our most recent book. I have sent money out to Marna Poole's Bushlife Conservancy, who we've supported over the years with elephant money in the last month to help their anti-poaching work. Like everywhere, they're in a lot of financial difficulty to raise money right now because the tourists aren't around and the donations aren't coming in. So the fact that if people buy an elephant book right now, they get something beautiful, but I can use that money to then support anti-poaching efforts right now happening is wonderful. And people get into the series. It's great. So, new people come along, they hear about lions for the first time, they look us up, they go, oh, there's all these other books, or, I'll ask for those for Christmas. And that does still allow us to continue to support those species as we go along.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, then we had a incredible trip to South Africa, Tanzania, and Rwanda. It's in follow-up to Remembering Rhinos. So again, that was with a view to offering transparency to people, wasn't it? It was to show people that, among others, I think on this particular day in the photograph, we were with Dr. Johan Mare from Saving the Survivors, I believe, and he, as you can see in the background, a rhino that has survived and has been survived a poaching. It's literally had its face cut off, and the work that Johan does is staggering. But we had this incredible trip, didn't we, where again we followed up on the work that you had supported, and we saw that work in action and how effective it was.
Yeah, we did. So, and as you say, Johan is amazing. He came to London for the Remembering Rhinos launch, and there wasn't a dry eye in the house in hearing some of his tales about treating victims of poaching, and the work he does is incredible. And I don't know how emotionally he copes with it, but so this particular rhino, so he had treated, and actually he was in pretty good shape at this point. He was in a top secret location. We had no idea, we wouldn't be able to find it again. He was kind of very safely guarded, along with some other orphan rhinos that were there. And the really lovely, happy story about this particular rhino, Saya, is that he has now gone on to become a daddy. They'd introduced him to a female around the same time we were there, and now actually future generations are coming from that. So some of the money that we gave to Johan was to support this particular rhino and his upkeep.
I think that's a key point you just made there, is the fact that you save one rhino, and goodness knows, as you say, Johan really goes through it when he deals with these victims of poaching that have survived, and we saw it firsthand, didn't we? We weren't not as you say, this guy who was in pretty great shape. We saw the aftermath of a poaching that had taken place, and no treatment had been given, and we saw him in the field giving that treatment. And I mean, it showed us a lot, didn't it, in terms of, for example, the sensitive nature of a rhino that's under sedation. It wasn't completely under anesthetic, but sedated, and he was stitching a covering onto the wound, and the rhino was flinching every time the needle went into its skin, which is, it's actually a phrase, having the skin of as thick as a rhinoceros. Every time the needle went in, the rhino was flinching, and that's under sedation. That's tiny needle, and then you wonder what they went through when the poaching incident itself took place. And but the point I'm making is that you save that one rhino, and as you've just described with this guy, how many does that actually mean in the future? There's a ripple effect that spreads out from there because of that one survived, and this is a great example of that. So it's again just fantastic work, and it's not just it's not the obvious stuff necessarily, is it? Tell us about this gorgeous hound dog.
Yeah, so we were visiting Wilderness Foundation Africa, and this particular dog is a cold scent tracking dog. So she's incredibly clever in that she can, up to 24 hours after poachers have been through an area, pick up their scent. So by then the scent is cold, which is why she's called a cold scent tracking dog. And she's, not only can she do that, but she can even tell if the poachers have done a figure of 8 to try and confuse the trackers. She can pick up which is the warmest bit of the 8 and follow off in that area. So it costs around, I think it's about £8,000 to train one of these dogs and then keep it and donate it to people trying to track poachers. So again, through Wilderness Foundation Africa, we supported 1 or 2 dogs. So we got to meet her, and she was adorable.
She was adorable, and you kissed her on the very first date. We can see that photographic evidence. And we were actually there with Dr. Will Folds, weren't we? Who again is like Johan Mare, someone who just is absolutely incredible. The work he's doing and the lives he's saving.
Yeah.
This was an interesting one, wasn't it? With the plane, it was a.
So again, this is Wilderness Foundation Africa. So we were also looking to fund anti-poaching patrols, so going out looking for poachers down in South Africa. And we were supposed to go up in this plane, and if you look closely at the tire, you can see he'd actually crash landed on coming to pick us up, and we didn't know because we were inside with the cold scent dog, kind of having a chat there, and suddenly the pilot arrived a bit sweaty and flustered, and we're like, "Are you okay?" And he's like, "Well, I just crashed and nearly hit a tree, but it's fine, and we'll fix it, and I'm sure we'll get you up shortly." And I was thinking, "There's no way I want to now get in that plane." And you were like, "I really want to go." And I was thinking,
well, I was kind of thinking the law of averages, the chances of it crashing twice in 2 flights. It was probably the safest flight I'd have ever taken.
Yeah, well, thankfully neither of us got to find out. But he did take off later in the day, and we were told he was fine, so that was good.
Yes, indeed.
But yeah, again, it was. I mean, I've since been on other kind of anti-poaching flights and got to see how they work. But I mean, these visits are so motivating to me. It's I want to show people how the money is being used and that they understand tangibly how it's used, and also that I think so carefully, as you say, about how I think best to spend the money. I don't want to do all this hard work, get everyone to donate their pictures, our volunteers to work for free, everyone, we raise all this money to then have it wasted. So it's incredibly important that I'm really careful with working with organizations who are reputable and doing great work and that fulfill our mission as well. So yeah, and also, so you mentioned Will Folds, just to say we were able to give him a donation, another donation last year from Further Sales of Remembering Rhinos. So I think we actually ended up funding for him. It was interesting. It was an admin coordinator, because he's like, I'm out in the field all the time, actually, healing and treating animals, and we're missing all these calls and it's a bit uncoordinated. So paying for someone to actually take that burden from him and get more effective and efficient for him in the work that he does. Again, it's not what I expected. When I started, I was just like, they poached this elephant, I'm going to put guns in the hands of rangers, we're going to shoot the poachers, job done. And now the variety of things that we've supported with funds from these books is just incredible. But it all, I'd say it all really adds together as a jigsaw puzzle to make sense.
Yeah, it really does. And I mean, I think you've got to take a lot of credit for the fact that you've just described a very, very common misconception, which is people think, well, shoot poachers, kill poachers on sight, end of problem. It's absolutely not the case. And rather than just sticking to that belief, misguided belief, and throwing money at anti-poaching ranges, you've gone out of your way to find out what's effective and what really is needed. And as you say, maybe that's something as unglamorous as an admin assistant for someone who's in the field doing the work. But if that's the difference between him being out saving a life or not, that's absolutely crucial, life-saving funding.
And also I have to say, actually, I think there is again, I've learned this, and I've kind of learned it the hard way, because again, in the beginning, I was very much, I want to support in a way that there's this phrase I've learned coming into this world called restricted funds. So I just want to, I want to buy some night vision goggles, or I want to buy 20 pairs of boots, or 100 guns, or, whatever it is. And you get very restricted in your funding. And a lot of these organizations, they can't run without the people running them earning a salary. They much as they're wonderful human beings who would love to work for free, and they do work for a pittance, they do need support. And so I've become much more supportive of funding salaries for roles that are being done by organizations, where they can ask, a fundraiser, as you say, do a fundraiser for milk feeding bottles for baby rhinos, and you're probably going to get a lot of money. Ask for a funder for, someone who cleans up their mess after them, and it's people are less inclined. So again, I think with our books, it's my role to make sure that we holistically support what needs to be done.
Absolutely. I'm just going to echo what Linda says, which is on screen right now. You are an inspiration to us all. Thank you for that comment, Linda. There's a lot of those comments coming in, by the way. And thank you for them. It's always lovely to have you guys engaging with us. We went, subsequent to the South Africa trip, we went for an amazing few days in Tanzania, in the Serengeti, but then we went to Rwanda. And Rwanda, as well as being utterly incredible. I mean, it's probably one of the most extraordinary countries I've ever visited, and this is a quick example of the scenery. Whoops, wrong screen. Here we go. Just look at that backdrop. This is the Volcanoes National Park in Rwanda, where you stumbled upon, literally, not literally stumbled on them, but we've certainly found them and met them in person. And another utterly mind-blowing experience was to meet the mountain gorillas in Rwanda, which led to your next book, really, didn't it?
It did. So yeah, we got to go and meet and spend time with mountain gorillas. We also in Tanzania, let's not forget, we got to see chimpanzees as well. So
yes, of course we did, yes.
Yeah, we stayed in Tanzania at the amazing Greystoke Mahali, thanks to Nomad Tanzania. But I had a pretty good idea at that point that I wanted to do great apes. But again, I do have this thing where I kind of, I feel like I want to have an engagement, a direct relationship with the animals that I'm then going to dedicate a year of my life to writing a book about. So it was important for me to actually spend some time with mountain gorillas, and what a staggering experience it is. I know you feel the same. You smell them before you see them, I remember, because the musk smell from them is so powerful. And I remember a big silverback. I don't think it was Moninho, who is the one who's on the cover here, but I can't remember which family we were with. But at one point we were sitting on the ground, the guides were keeping us very well behaved. And I looked across at this silverback, and, you're a big guy and you work out, and you were about a quarter of the size of this. You were tiny, and this silverback was just over. I mean, they're enormous. I couldn't believe it.
They're absolutely enormous.
And again, I mean, actually, mountain gorillas are one of the few success stories in conservation, and that their numbers have been increasing thanks to conservation efforts. But there's still only around 1,000. And in numbers terms, there's very few, and a lot of the other apes are suffering, a lot more than the gorillas that are being protected. So, we decided on remembering great apes, and the wonderful Ian Redmond, who actually was an assistant to Diane Fossey, agreed to be my editor and fount of all knowledge, and help us shape that next book.
And irritatingly, I can see the thumbnail of Ian, but it's one of the slides that's not behaving itself, I'm afraid. But I will tell you this. I'm delighted to tell you this. Ian is going to be one of our guests.
Okay.
Which is wonderful. So we'll be talking directly to Ian. As you say, he studied with Diane Fossey right there in the Volcanoes National Park area that we were in, and what an experience that was. And it will be wonderful to hear from Ian and his experiences. But as you say, he helped you with editing Remembering Great Apes, and that was another storming success. Just the most extraordinary photographs. And again, you guys, I mean, it's every single one of the books. It's impossible to choose between them, because the quality of the work in every single one of the books is just jaw-droppingly beautiful. So check it out. Check them out. Do yourself a favor.
And how lucky am I that say that books like these have actually introduced me to people like Ian, who've become friends, and Ian actually introduced me to Jane Goodall, because he had the relationship with her, so I was able to go and meet her, and so she wrote the foreword for Remembering Great Apes at Ian's invitation, which again is a huge honor to have her involved. And and as we've evolved, again, I've got more and more kind of conservationists and people hugely respected in their fields involved in us putting these books together, which again is a real treat.
Yeah, it really is. And but I have to say, once again, a little bit of a gush fest coming up, but the reason why these people are prepared to put their names and efforts behind what you do is because they know how effective it is, and the success that you've achieved, and the validity of everything you're doing. So I think it speaks volumes to what you're doing, and it's an endorsement of everything you've achieved. Thanks. And that's why it will continue to be that, and we could talk for, and we do. We've had the luxury of having many long haul flights together, and lots of long drives across Africa together to talk about all of these things. But I'm having to join the dots rapidly. But after, because we could talk all night about just the Great Apes book or just any of these books, and but next in the series came the one you guys have already seen, this incredible book right here, which is Remembering Lions. Tell us about how this this came to be your next species.
Well, I think that Cecil the Lion definitely, influenced my thinking. I mean, people are always asking me what the next book is going to be, and when you start to list all of the species that are endangered and that have threats and stories that you want to tell, it is just endless. But equally, if I know that if I do books on iconic species that are going to be bestsellers, that will allow us to raise more funds, and actually inadvertently, when we are supporting anti-poaching efforts, around whether it's elephants or lions, we're supporting all the other species in an ecosystem at the same time. So going for lions next, really, I knew would be a very popular choice. And I mean, this amazing picture by Federico Veronese, who's an Italian photographer, who's a really great friend of mine too. I mean, it's just mesmerizing, this image. But Cecil, his murder, as you put it, had been, in a lot of the media over the years, and so I find stories. There are things I want to tell, like with cheetahs coming up. There's stuff I want to talk about, and stories I think need to be told. And Cecil's story needed to be told in lions. So Brent Staplekamp, who was the researcher who basically blew the whistle on the illegal hunt, and was, excuse me, was the one who knew Cecil better than anyone else, really. He was able to write his experience for us in the Lions book, and Cecil's story is immortalized now in that book, and will not be forgotten. He will be remembered for his part in the story of lions and what mankind has done to them.
I remember the event at the RGS. I wish I could show the slide. It's another of the slides that's misbehaving. But really, what you guys would be seeing is an image of one of the most beautiful, I'd say, iconic auditorium in London, which is the Royal Geographical Society. Which again, this comes back to the conversation we had earlier on, where I know I've known your fear and your concerns about, will people show up? Will it be a success? And I mean, just suffice to say that you're going to need a bigger boat fairly soon, aren't you? It's kind of the RGS. You're starting to outgrow the RGS, which is a 700-seat venue, and any day now, it would be one. I mean, perhaps with the world we're living in today, that's not going to be an issue, but it's just grown and grown and grown. And I know that you have been overwhelmed on the night itself when you've looked across the audience, and I remember also you've often asked people who've come from abroad, they've flown in to raise their hand or to stand up, and about half the room stands up. It's an incredible level of support that you've garnered, and rightly so. But how do you feel when you see that, when you think back to that day when you thought, that's not good enough, I'm going to have to do something about this elephant that I've just seen, and you look across, for example, for the last one, Remembering Lions, for which was almost a full house in the Royal Geographical Society. How does that even compute?
It doesn't really. It makes me very emotional. It surprises me. So many things about this whole series surprise me and amazes me. And I remember even in the first year with the elephant book, I think we sold about 380 tickets, and I wish I could remember her name. I apologize if you're watching. There was a lady came up to me and said, "Oh, I've come in from Antigua for this," and I was like, "Oh, you've come to England on holiday?" And she said, "No, I've come from Antigua for the event for Remembering Elephants because it means a lot to me." And I was like, "Really?" And it just didn't occur to me that people would do that. And yeah, as you say, it's now. I mean, people come from all over the world. We have people literally from every continent coming to support us every year, and I'm just amazed and very grateful. That's the thing I should emphasize. Incredibly grateful.
Well, also, while we're talking about support, Russell Crowe, Pierce Brosnan, Ellen DeGeneres, Kevin Peterson, Chris Martin, Ricky Gervais, the list is endless of all these folks who think highly enough of your endeavors. You guys will see some very recognizable faces. There's our dear friend Peter Egan. There's Paul Kagame, who's the president of Rwanda, no less. I mean, this is incredible. Joanna Lumley, Chris Packham, Virginia McKenna, all these wonderful, wonderful people who you guys will see if you visit the website rememberingwildlife.com. This speaks volumes. There's Ian Redmond. There he is with his I forget the name of the elephant on his shoulder.
Oh God, I can't remember the name either. I'm
so
sorry.
Embarrassed. But you guys can see that Margot has garnered absolutely incredible support from people over the years across the series around the world, and rightly so. So again, I think it just speaks to what you've created. You know, you're getting coverage in the biggest, best publications on earth. You've got a huge amount of respect from the photography community, from the conservation community, from everyone who sees the books, everyone who's involved. And again, that shows, that's another reason why you get people throwing themselves at you when you ask for volunteers. And I've been there myself on a number of occasions to do the famous suicide photo on the wall there. That's the same as me wanting to go up on the plane that just crashed. I kind of enjoy it, but you've got an army of people. You've got an army of people who are there wanting to help you, bending over backwards to help you, giving all their time and effort because of, again, yes, these people are wonderful, but these are also very smart people who wouldn't be wasting their time on something they didn't see as being a benefit to the wider cause, and that's what you've created.
Yeah, but I think we should just explain briefly why it's called the suicide picture before people start.
Yeah, you go ahead and do that. You named it, so you'll have to. Yeah, you'll have to explain it.
It was even me. There's a place in the gallery that we use, which is over a very steep stairwell that goes down, and we always hang a really, really big, heavy picture, and so it's got to be kind of lifted across this gap that if you fell down you would break your neck, and we're all of the volunteers, including me, are always too terrified to actually hang this, and you kind of come in very strongly and bravely and somehow manage to do it for us. So we call it the suicide picture because none of us want to hang it. Although we had to then take it down without you last year, and so I had to go and beg some stranger off the street.
Oh, there you go.
I go, you don't know me, but please help. So
it's all in the mind. It's all in the mind.
Anyway, he was a sucker and he helped us. But yes, in terms of all the people supporting and the celebrities, and I've had a lot of help getting those celebrities. Again, it's just wonderful that I've had friends who have helped me because they are friends with celebrities, and I've not mentioned the jewelry. We have a wonderful Graham Nuttall does amazing pieces of jewelry for us every year, which we sell on Kickstarter. And I just think I've found something I've struck upon, and I do insist that there is an element of luck in here. I'd love to pretend or claim that it was all terribly strategic from the beginning, that this would all happen. It's a lot of it has unfolded and overwhelmed me, but it's something that people can throw whatever skills they've got behind and know it's doing good. So whether it is, like I've got, the reason I know precisely how much we've spent is because the finance director, Greg Broadbent, who I worked with at my old PR agency for many years, Lexis, he's come on board, as a finance director for me. The tiny fee I pay him on a monthly basis, not reflecting his value at all, but he keeps all in check for me because I know it's important to, have someone else managing all of that and it all done above board. And whether it's that or someone who makes jewelry or someone who does a piece of art or someone who, again, one of our lovely volunteers, Rachel, her dad does calligraphy. So he does the certificates that go in the book every year. Just,
amazing.
Whatever it is that we need, there's someone out there who, suddenly pops up with that skill. And it's, you know, it's a lovely feeling to be such part of such a huge team. And, you know, I'm incredibly grateful to everyone. And it's, you know, we none of us individually could achieve this. It's only because it's all of us together.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very well said. I know that you're absolutely right. It is an incredible team effort. I've had the privilege of seeing how it's grown, and even from year one, you know, with the number of people who lent their support to it, and I've seen how it's grown from there into this incredible community of people who are one cohesive team, and it's brilliant. But you know, again, it is fair to say that they're there because of the validity of everything you're doing, and the credibility you've gained, and the leadership that you offer. So it's pretty incredible. And but gosh, aren't we grateful for them?
Yeah.
But we for you as well. And now, this year, get ready, guys. If you haven't seen it already, get ready. Get yourselves ready for this. Boom. I mean, what a photograph.
Yes, and it's funny. So that the photographer Donal Boyd, American photographer, a lovely man, that took this picture. He hadn't worked with us previously. I mean, one of the first things I have to do as soon as I decided on the next species is find a cover, because before we can do a Kickstarter campaign, I have to say this is what the book's going to look like. So, and I've kind of got myself in this trap, a happy trap, that, you know, all of the pictures we need to have the animal looking straight at camera. It needs to kind of look imploring, not. And it's amazing, actually, when you start to stare at as many images as I do, the expressions that animals can have. And a lot of cheetahs frown quite a bit because they're concentrating and looking into the distance. So I didn't want a frowny cheetah. I didn't want, you know, a yawny cheetah. It needed to have that imploring, protect me look, which I think we've managed to achieve with all of the others. And so I was searching high and low for cheetah pictures, found this one by Donal, who I followed on Instagram, messaged him saying, you don't know me, but, you know, this is what I'm doing, and please, you know, what do you think? And I got nothing. So then I went to his website and tried to track him down that way, got nothing. It spent about 3 weeks trying to track the guy down. And then eventually he popped up and said, oh, I'm sorry, I was having a break from social media. And I was like, don't do that. But once he heard, said how delighted he was. And actually, we just spent a few days together at the Cheetah Conservation Fund in Namibia just before lockdown. So I've got to know him personally, and he's an incredibly generous, wonderfully spirited man. And yeah, we got to use that picture. And that picture is actually a cheetah that was the granddaughter of a cheetah that the Cheetah Conservation Fund had rescued, and who had rehabilitated and re-released in the Irindi Game Reserve. And she went on to be a grandmother. So the cub is actually a success story, born in the same way as we're talking about Saya, the rhino, having, you know, fathered. You know, when you save these animals, and organizations like the Cheetah Conservation Fund in this instance save these animals, they do go on to repopulate, you know, future species. So it's a lovely circular story there, that, you know, a lot of our funds this year will go to the Cheetah Conservation Fund, without whom that baby cheetah wouldn't be around.
That's so wonderful. That's, again, an incredibly worthy cause and a great spend of the money. So you guys will, of course, have all the transparency, as always, to see just how that money's been spent. You speaking about this year, it's a very strange year. So obviously things can't, at this stage, happen in the same way that you've got. Just for the guys who aren't familiar with Margot's series, it's not just the books, but every year there's the gallery event, and then there's the incredible launch event at the RGS, which I was just describing to you as being this incredible venue. And it's become an annual thing. As you say, right from the start, you had people coming in from all over the world, and it's only grown. Presumably that can't happen this year.
Yeah, with huge regret, I can't see that we can safely plan for a live event in a socially distanced way that people, you know, potentially might book flights to come in for, that then, as we're experiencing right now, could get locked down again. So I don't want to risk it. I don't want to have the admin nightmare of people having bought tickets that we can't then fulfill. So we're going to be going online, but it isn't going to be just any old online event, because I always like to do things a bit differently. So I'm working on some quite exciting plans as to how to make it a real event, and we're going to do the best we can to recreate the experience that people do have when they come to the Royal Geographical Society, even from the kind of networking cocktail party that the VIPs attend, through to finding a way to try and fulfill on some of the book signing ideas.
Right.
All our speakers who are lined up, so Franz Lanting and Chris Ekstrom from California will be there. Jonathan Angela Scott will be there again. Laurie Marker will be there. So lots of the elements, but just in an online way. And I'm very grateful that obviously you've agreed to help and to sort of compare us for the evening as well, and keep everything running smoothly. So tickets will hopefully go on sale in a couple of weeks. I just want to make sure I've got everything locked down properly before we put tickets on. But having been disappointed that I had to reach that conclusion, I'm actually now kind of excited, because I think that potentially, you know, for all the people that did fly in from all over the world, there's plenty who would love to see and experience our events who just couldn't possibly dream of doing that. So now actually they will be able to attend and be part of it and experience some of what you've described. So I'm very positive about I think the event's going to be very exciting this year.
I think so too, and I think this has been out of necessity. Of course, people have become accustomed to those online events. We've seen it happen with everything that was due to happen, because there's no other alternative. But I also think that the cumulative effect that we've talked about that your books have in terms of people who jump on board at this point with Remembering Cheetah will suddenly want the previous 4 books. So it's incredible, because you don't tend to do anything but grow. When you collect somebody new, you tend to have collected them and they stay. And so that being the case, when you imagine the numbers of people, as you say, disproportionately to those who could have been at a live event in London, the numbers of people who could attend and who will then be interested for future books in the series, assuming there is a future book in the series. Of course, I wouldn't second guess that. Having said that, and you've already told us that it's one of the most irritating questions you get asked all the time. Anything you can tell us?
It's definitely not squirrels.
Are you sure?
No,
because I went through a lot of trouble.
Although if you could get Barack and Michelle on board, then maybe I'll reconsider. But probably not squirrels.
Hey, listen. I don't. The numbers, they don't lie. Look, it says.
Yeah,
and you get your cover photos ready. So there's nothing. There's less. Hey, listen. There's less work for you. The cover's done.
Yes, let's see what the feedback is from this. I'll definitely consider it, Dan. Thank you.
Do you know? I'll tell you. I actually created that because I knew you'd say it's not squirrels.
Damn it.
I knew that was coming, and I love that you said it as it appeared on screen. That was perfect. Thank you so much. That wasn't rehearsed. Margot had no idea that was coming.
I should have guessed when you asked for the fonts, but
yeah. Well, actually, the reason I asked for the font wasn't that isn't the font. The reason I asked for the font was I wanted to put your name in the same font on the promo poster.
Right.
But yeah. But what I do know is that whatever you decide to do, that species and anybody involved in the conservation of that species will benefit greatly from it. You'll shine a spotlight on it. You'll raise awareness. You'll get people engaged. You'll do all the things that this broadcast is designed to do, and you'll do it in such a way that it inspires us. Like it's so the fact that you've come and given us this time this evening and shared the story is so inspiring. What you do is what you've done. It's exemplary. It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. I know everyone agrees with me because I've been watching the comments come rolling in as always from people who just think that it's incredible what you've done, and they're right.
Well, I can see one there that someone is pointing out that squirrels are not endangered, Dan.
Well, the Kiki and Dee aren't, but that's not to say. I mean, apparently there's a look. You know what? Joking aside, actually, one of the reasons why I'm absolutely I love the fact that I've got these two little visitors to my apartment is because they're one of those species that get persecuted. Here they are, not through their own choice, but through man's involvement, through man's interference with nature, and suddenly they're a pest. And there's literally a cull, just like everything else that man decides is an inconvenience. There's a potential cull against grey squirrels. So I think it's nice that since I've been getting these visits, a lot of people have been paying attention to squirrels a little bit more, and I've been approached by some lovely squirrel rescues and squirrel charities and squirrel protection organizations, and the very fact that they're required, it's indicative of the fact that they get a bit of a rough deal. So, however, we're not here to talk about squirrels. We're not here to talk about squirrels. Not tonight. You usually announce, don't you, on January 1st what your is that right? January 1st, you announce what your species is?
The last few years, it's always been January the 1st. So I literally have not decided right now. And every book it's an entire year's commitment from me. I keep thinking to it, it's not like a normal job where, you could actually give a notice period if you decide that you've had enough. Once I've opened the floodgate on January the 1st, I am committed, like I am this year with Cheetahs, all the way through to delivering a book and launching it and doing all the wrap up and publicity and things with that. So I have to take my time each year, and I kind of catch my breath after the book and think, do I feel right? And do I feel that we are still growing support? And as you said, I don't take it for granted. And say people do wonderfully seem to want to collect the series and keep adding, but some people also send me jokey messages saying I'm going to need a bigger bookshelf because if I keep doing this, people aren't going to have room in their houses. But
good.
Yeah, we'll see. But there are stories to say. It's always, for me, there are stories that need to be told, and actually this year with cheetahs, one of the most poignant stories I want to tell is the tale of the Iranian cheetahs, which the last Asiatic cheetahs. There's only about 40 left in Iran, obviously a very difficult country to get to. And the researchers who are doing amazing work there, safeguarding them and trying to protect the end of this line. A lot of them have been thrown in jail, accused of spying by using their camera traps, which is complete nonsense because a camera trap picture is, only takes a very short distance. You couldn't possibly use it for spying. So it's all politically motivated. But there are people who have dedicated their lives to cheetah research, some of whom worked at CCF and who know some of the guys I met out there, who are in Iranian jail for trying to save cheetahs. And more people need to know about that. So this book is actually dedicated to those researchers and obviously to the cheetahs themselves, because if not, something isn't done, they're going to go the way of the northern white rhinos. So they just won't be here. So we have a wonderful picture of an Iranian cheetah in there and an essay all about them as well. But so there are just sometimes stories just pull my heart so much, and I think we have to tell that story, and then that helps shape the book and what we're going to say.
Well, it's just unfathomable how unjust that is, what's happening with the researchers in Iran. It's so difficult to know what people can do about that. Is there any kind of a call to action? Is there right to an MP? Is there a petition that people can sign?
I wish I could tell you an easy answer. That it's political. It's incredibly political, and I know that there was a campaign a while ago that was very pointedly timed when their cases were being reviewed. That people like Jane Goodall did video messages to the Iranian government and tried to kind of get them to persuade to change their mind and weren't successful. Some of the researchers have actually been released, I believe, because of the COVID running through Iranian jails, but we don't know whether they're going to get re-jailed afterwards.
Right.
But for me right now, I can't tell you a call to action, but I think it's something that continues to need to be spoken about, because politically, if that is held against or held up, hopefully that means that there might be some movement, that we won't let them be forgotten.
Sure. One call to action that you probably can give people is, I've seen a couple of comments come through from people asking how they can help. What with the the campaign this year, I guess obviously the help that you need is going to be potentially very limited and different, because there's none of the physical stuff at the gallery. There's no hanging of pictures over staircases or the RGS event. Is there somewhere that people can get in touch with you if they want to offer help?
Actually, I do think, although we're not going to do the live event at the Royal Geographical Society, I'm pretty sure I'm still going to do an exhibition, but just a week this time.
Wonderful.
So the suicide picture roll is potentially still open, open for grabs. Thanks, Ben. But what I think we'll do, and I'm still working on this, but I think we might start selling some of the pictures in advance to fund them. So I might actually start to release some and say, look, buy this picture now. That will allow us to make it and hang it in the exhibition. You will be a sponsor of this picture. And then you lend it to us. And once the exhibition comes down, we'll ship it off to you. And that will help mitigate our risk, because I'm worried about, it costs us with the venue hire close to £30,000 to put on the exhibition, which we normally recoup. But if we do that and then there just isn't the footfall, I could have wasted that money that I could have spent on straight to conservation charities. So cool. I want to kind of mitigate the risk. So one of the things is look out for our announcements about pictures and become a kind of sponsor by buying a picture in advance. So I'm hoping come August I'll start doing that and releasing them, and we'll have a bit of a campaign. So therefore, the actual exhibition itself, again, we will need some volunteers. If people want to join our volunteer group, I think the best thing is probably send a message to the Remembering Cheetahs Facebook page, and we can capture you that way. Yeah, cool. Thank you. You're so clever. So yeah, capture people that way. But again, obviously we're going to have to be careful. So normally we've had, kind of 20, 30 people help us put the pictures up and take them down. And now this year, I'm going to have to manage that so that I'm not endangering anyone, because we're all getting too crowded in the gallery. So it will be a challenge, but spreading the word. So, when we're trying to get the exhibition up and running and selling those pictures in advance, it's sharing. If you can't afford to buy one yourself, of course, but share it. See if anyone might want to sponsor that picture. Share when the tickets are on sale. Share pictures of yourselves holding the books, if you've got them already. Just awareness for what we're trying to do.
And with that in mind, guys, you can see the Facebook pages on screen. The Twitter page, I haven't made a spelling mistake. That is it. It's without the E in remember.
Yes.
And so do, as Margot says, do follow on social media. You'll also find the website, I dare say, has links to those social media channels, right?
Yeah.
So get yourselves over there. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to share rememberingwildlife.com into the chat. So you'll see it hit right now as food for thought. So if you want to use that link, because obviously on screen it's not a link, you just get to see it. And before we say goodbye to Margot, I'm just going to say at a new time, a new day again, because this is why we've done this today with Margot, who's very kindly given us her evening to share her story on a Wednesday, which is absolutely new for us. How exciting. Because we wanted to avoid July 4th, which is Saturday, for the American friends that watch this. So on Sunday, the 5th of July at 6 p.m. UK time, so an hour earlier, on Sunday the 5th of July, I'll be joined by Karen Paulilo, who runs the Turgway Hippo Trust in Zimbabwe. It's going to be an incredible conversation. Her story is incredible. The story of what she does out there in Zimbabwe is incredible. I'm very happy to tell you that she and I ran a successful test of her connection, which is only through set periods of time during the day, hence the earlier time frame on Sunday. Ironically, yesterday, and I didn't mention this until now because I didn't want to worry you, Margot, either, that actually my internet crashed yesterday for about 6 hours. So there she is in Zimbabwe, ready to run a test, and here I am in London, unable to because my internet's down. So the irony of that wasn't lost on me, but it's behaving itself now. Hopefully it will behave on Sunday, and 6 o'clock, Karen Paulilo, Turgway Hippo Trust, please join us. And as for you, Margot Raggett, here's an interesting fact. Did you know when I type Margot into my iPhone, it changes it to Marmot? Marmot Roger. Anyway, we'll look forward immensely to remembering squirrels. and whatever else comes after that. But joking aside, Margot, you're a superhero. We utterly adore you for everything you've done and continue to do. And as I've said, have the benefit of knowing just how much of your heart and soul and blood, sweat and tears go into this. And so from the bottom of my heart, I can't even find the words to thank you sufficiently, because I know what you put into this. It's literally, when people talk about those who've dedicated their life to a cause, that's what I've seen you do. And you save lives, and we love you for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to everyone who supports us. You say it's a team effort. It really is. And and I thank you also for being my counsellor through the years. I'm so happy that we got to meet. These books, brought our friendship together. That's
yes,
great.
they did. I'm grateful for that as well. And long may it last, and it will.
Yeah.
Thank you, Margot. And thank you all for watching, as always. Join us on Sunday. Meantime, spread the love. See you soon.
Bye.